Here's my first video. Today we're going to talk about Hood, Robinhood stock. Probably my favorite stock that I own. All right, so Hood is about 33% of my portfolio, and Tesla's about 43%. Hood used to be about like 48%, but then I'll talk about that later. So today's video is going to be, obviously, like I said, primarily about Hood. However, we're going to start off with earnings. Then we're going to go into a bullish/bearish segment, the overall stock as a whole, things to look for this year. I'll probably mention some key information about what analysts have said and things I see on my X page. A lot of people hate on people finding information about like on X or Reddit or whatever it is. I think it's pretty valuable. I found a lot of valuable information on X, as I think you can read a lot of the sentiment. I mean, it can be pretty biased, but you can read a good amount of sentiment of what people think about X stock. Not gonna lie, I just recorded a 20-minute segment of their earnings just now. My display capture was not on. It wasn't recording. So Robinhood's earnings, in my opinion, it was pretty good. Quarter four was a really good quarter, in my opinion, especially considering the fact that crypto dropped significantly over the last 3 months, as well as Hood. So they had a projected 1.32 billion to 1.5 billion in revenue, and they actually had 1.28 billion. Not too far of a miss. Their EPS was 0.66, and their projected was 0.63. All right, so then we have their transactional revenue. The transactional revenue was about, obviously it makes up a majority of their revenue. It was 776 million for the quarter, which was up 15% year over year. They had $221 million in crypto transactional revenue, which in my opinion was also pretty good. Like I said, because of the fact crypto has been experiencing crazy sell-off. Then they had their equities, options, and their other, which is prediction markets. Options was 314 million, equities was 94 million, and prediction markets was 147 million. So now we're going to talk about the consumer information. They have a record of 4.2 million gold subscribers, which is a little over $20 million a month. They now have 27 million users on the platform, $16 billion in net deposits this last quarter, and they now have 11 businesses that have $100 million in ARR. So why the big sell-off? Not just recently, but after the earnings. They dropped 8 to 12% after earnings. My opinion is because of it was an overreaction, in my opinion, but people are fearful. They feared that the crypto revenue obviously had a 38% decline year over year. However, a lot of people do not understand Hood stock and where a lot of the revenue comes from. Yes, a good portion of it comes from crypto. However, it's only about 18%. They had $221 million in crypto transactional revenue this last quarter, but it was only 18% of their $1+ billion in revenue. Last year, quarter four 2024, they had their first $1 billion in revenue quarter. And now they're doing that when 18 to 20% of the revenue source has been on almost a 40% decline. Like, I would think that was a positive. I mean, I wouldn't consider it as a positive, but it kind of gives you some security and assurance knowing that when crypto has a sharp decline, you're still making over $1 billion in revenue. It's not a majority of revenue is coming from crypto. I just think people have high expectations for Hood. They've been on a crazy run. Like last 2025 was one of the craziest runs for a stock I've ever seen. They literally been growing at a pace that I did not see coming. I mean, I was arguing this stock valuation had a market cap of $100 billion back in last May, and I still stand by that. Now I'm at like a $68 billion market cap. But I was saying when they were valued at $30 billion, I was telling people valued at $100 billion. And it actually ended up hitting that, surpassing it. I think it was 150 billion and maxed out on. Considering the market is forward looking, you kind of have to look in that direction. Like, where do you think Hood is going to be in the next 5 to 10 years? I like to go by the philosophy of invest in something that you use. And I use the app almost every single day, and I know X amount of people do. You see people are now investing more and more than ever. and Hood is going to continue to increase their market share. Investing is just as easy as ever, in my opinion, and Hood has one of the most friendly user interfaces on over out of all the platforms that I have seen and used. All right, so now I'm just gonna quickly show the 6 month chart of Hood. Let's go 6 months. Damn. I look at the price of Hood almost every single day, at least every single trading day. Got it at a longer time frame. It kind of and visually kind of hits you harder. Yeah, interesting. However, Hood has a really high beta. However, with these high beta stocks, you just got to understand that you got to be comfortable and be prepared with these random high swings, lows, because they are very volatile. And in my opinion, that's what makes it fun. Except when you see a 36% decline in 1 month, not fun. But it just makes the gains in the future way more satisfying and you appreciate it more. Patience, in my opinion, I read this quote, went like the stock market is a place where it transfers wealth from the impatient to the patient. I don't remember who said it. I think it was Warren Buffett or Charlie Munger. But I think it's one of the most logical statements. It really is. People who and damn, there's so much to say. And people who are just getting into investing, they see these sharp declines and swings and they get fearful and they want out. A lot of people think it's a get rich quick method. However, it's not. You have to be patient and unemotional and rational in the stock market. All right, so Robinhood has actually probably one of the most important years of its lifeline as AI is improving at a significant rate. It is many people would argue it's an exponential curve. It's going to when AI progresses, it's going to go slowly up and it's going to shoot up. And there's many things that Robinhood has been pretty vocal about in terms of using AI into their business. Vlad Tenev, the CEO of Robinhood, on the recent earnings call, he stated that he's been telling people in almost every department to implement AI in some way, shape, or form because he knows how critical and important it is to use it, and people who don't use AI are just going to be left behind. One of the big things that they're going to be doing is they're releasing one of the products called Robinhood Cortex, which is going to be a personal AI assistant in terms of financial needs. The whole point of Robinhood Cortex is it's like a financial assistant where it can place trades for you. It can tell you certain financial data. It's basically imagine an AI as a financial assistant. However, he stated he has to go through all these regulations and all these legal concerns that the SEC has, which is understandable because if you think about it, if you have an AI giving you advice on financial needs and it doesn't work out, you probably have some sort of legal obligation to compensate the individual using it. But I think it's going to be a great product and a very useful product. I'm probably going to use it. In my opinion, I think people value things if it's convenient for them or not. So just imagine having a personal AI assistant making trades for you, giving you financial data whenever you want. And if you know what specialization is, some of these AI models, they're being specialized for coding, they're being specialized for software engineering or whatever the case may be. Imagine having an AI that's specializing in financial data and the whole financial ecosystem. Vlad Tenev, he's been probably my favorite CEO to follow over the last 12 to 16 months. He's been pretty vocal about the wealth transfer. So the wealth transfer, the whole concept about it is the generation that is basically retiring, people are passing away, people are going to inherit trillions and trillions of dollars. The generation before me is on the brink of inheriting trillions of dollars. And when that happens, Robinhood wants to be there for it. They want to be ready, prepared, and take advantage of this wealth transfer, what is going to be called the Great Wealth Transfer. Robinhood, the majority of their users are millennials. That is the generation that is going to be inheriting all this wealth. He's been pretty vocal about on X. I think Robinhood has been pretty vocal about on chain, which is their blockchain. Robinhood blockchain. They have their own blockchain, and they want to be the front runners of tokenization. So tokenization is basically tokenizing any financial asset. You could be able to trade it 24/7, instant settlements, and that is the big advantage of tokenization. Instead of having to wait until Monday to trade your stocks, or you can't trade because it's a federal holiday, or you have to wait the next day for your funds to be settled, or whatever the case may be. What tokenization will allow you to do is not only give you instant settlements, more hours of trading, but you can also be able to trade more financial assets, including real estate, private companies, possibly some certain artworks. However, another thing that is hindering them from progressing towards tokenization is just the regulations, and it's just the legality purpose of it. But yeah, he's been pretty vocal about tokenization. He thinks tokenization will eat the whole financial ecosystem. He's implying how valuable tokenization will be, and I'm all for it. I don't think people realize how valuable the tokenization is and the whole concept around it. Once again, the thing that's hindering tokenization from progressing into the near future is regulations and the certain bills that need to be passed, like the Clarity Act that should be passing within the next few months. But kind of like going back to like what I said before, Vlad Tenev, he's been very vocal about private companies, and the thing with that is to have tokenization be able to give the retail community access to private companies, and he's been pretty vocal about how unfair the retail community has been treated because they rarely have the chance to get access to these high value companies who start off like Apple IPO'd, and if you bought Apple when it IPO'd, you would be a pretty wealthy man right now. Same with Google. However, nowadays, when companies IPO, they're already IPOing at a valuation of $400 billion, and possibly OpenAI and SpaceX are going to be IPOing at a $1+ trillion valuation. Such little room for growth and increase of market valuation. Or if you buy the shares when it IPOs, it's just isn't even worth it at that point. So what they're trying to do is they're going to release what's called Robinhood Ventures, which is going to be their own fund where you have access to these privately owned companies. It's just a start because you are going to have to request access to certain shares, or you're going to have to request access to a certain amount of shares, and who knows how much you'll actually get. However, it's a start, and it's just to show the progress and type of future Robinhood wants for the retail community. I think if they have the proper execution, they will become a very valuable company in the future. In my opinion, the previous big brokerages, their user interfaces, their innovation lacks significantly, as Robinhood and Vlad Tenev has been pretty clear about what makes a company so valuable, or to keep their valuation growing, is the fact that they are continue to innovate. If you stop innovating, you are going to hinder the growth of your company, and it's just going to be an impediment to the future. Not only the future of your company, but an impediment to the future growth of society, because innovation drives productivity, and it helps technologize the current economy and, like I said, the society that we live in. All right, so that is the end of that video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and see you next video.